All right. Hello. Congratulations. If you've made it to this point, you're at the stage where you're ready to develop your master teacher project. So in this video, what I'm going to go over is what types of things do I want you to take deep consideration of to become a certified teacher? There's so many aspects to take into consideration. So the first thing that I want to talk about is ethics. When you become a teacher, whether it be of yogasana, pranayama, meditation, there are several things that I want you to take into consideration. Now, of course, you have your own moral compass, but morals are important. Once you become a teacher and you take students under your wing, you are placed into a position of power in their eyes. Don't abuse this power. Don't abuse students financially, psychologically, physically, or sexually. Most people who take this program are mature enough to realize that this is inappropriate and to have a good code of conduct. All right. Have transparency in your practices. Have ethics and morals in your practices. So let me go ahead and pull up a few things. Give me just a second. Okay, so let's take a look at some things regarding yoga ethics. You don't have to print out anything for this one, although I'll include the PowerPoints as well. These things should be pretty self-explanatory. When you are looking at yoga ethics or being ethical as a teacher, you need to look at the safety mechanisms of where you're going to be practicing. Okay, basic things like making sure that your students are safe with the props. Don't have crummy props that are falling apart. Make sure that they're sanitized. Check the floors that they're clean, that they're not going to slip, trip, or injure themselves and then sue you. Make sure that the walls are clean and sanitary, that you don't look like you're conducting it in a dingy dungeon, okay? Unless that's your theme, that's okay with me. Take a look at your environment. If you're practicing in a physical environment, make sure that they're safe, that you don't have faulty plugs, cords to trip on, basic things like this. And take into consideration the temperature of your room, that you're not overheating them or getting them too cold. Think about aromas in your room. Some people are allergic to aromas. I once had a student that came to a class and we had just saged or smudged the room, and she had an anaphylactic shock reaction to the mint family, which included sage. Some people have allergic reactions to incense that are being burned, and who are they going to blame? They're going to blame you. So just some basic things like that to take into consideration, okay? Now let's take a look at some other things that you need to consider as a teacher. As a teacher of yoga and or meditation, we need to be respectful of diversity. If you have issues with gender, sex, politics, etc., try to set them aside as the teacher of the class. Okay, it can get you into trouble. If you want to only be catering to exclusive groups, then you have to make that transparent. So try to have the most respect as possible and non-judgment regarding ethnicity, political views, religious views, sexual orientation, physical ability, body type, age, socioeconomics, and learning ability. You need to take all of this into consideration too when you're developing your master teacher project. If you don't want to work with people with disabilities, you need to clearly state that your school of teaching or your form of teaching is not conducive to people with disabilities. Seems kind of obvious, but it's not always obvious to the person looking to take your services as a teacher. If it's a unigender, you need to be very specific that it is a men's yoga or a men's meditation or a men's group or women or multigender, etc. Okay, pretty self-explanatory, but I want you to include this information in your training or in your, master teacher project. Okay, include, are you going to be excluding certain body types, certain abilities? Are you excluding certain genders? And it's okay if you are, but be clear on why you are, okay? All right, that's pretty basic. Let's take a look also at professionalism. I shouldn't have to teach a lot on professionalism, and plus you will learn trial and error. First thing, of course, respect diversity. That is part of professionalism. Also make sure that you take a look at the language that you use. The language that you use in your professionalism is important. So, in other words, saying things like, if you have a larger body habitation, rather than saying, if you are fat. Your teaching style is your teaching style, but these are some things to take into consideration, that every word you use matters. Try also to use non-violent communication. If you're not comfortable or sure what non-violent communication means, just Google it and try to be a kind, loving, conducive, or at minimum, supportive teacher. Okay. We as teachers want to build up our students, to encourage them to grow, not to tear them down. This is not boot camp. Unless you're teaching some sort of boot camp program, that's your business. We want to make sure that we have clear communication style. What you say should be what the student receives. Also, that dovetails into keeping your commitment. If you make a schedule of classes, commit to that schedule, or at least communicate that the commitment has changed. I have shown up to different places where I expected a teacher to show up prepaid, and 20 minutes later, standing in the cold and the rain, the teacher did not show up and never explained why they didn't show up. That is unprofessional. It's cool if you do it, but you're going to lose students. So you want to make a commitment. Make sure the commitment is what you can stick to, from the time, the location, the cost, the subject matter, and the delivery format. This could seem pretty basic, but you would be shocked at how many times people just kind of spaz out on their commitment. And if you have commitment issues, really think hard before you make a commitment to students. Okay? All right, let's take a look at the next. Next thing in professionalism is to acknowledge your limit as a teacher. What are your physical limitations? What are your academic limitations? You will have certain students, perhaps, that could show up to class and say, well, I want to learn how to do this pose or this practice. And it might be beyond what you've learned. It might be beyond what you understand, or it could even be beyond what you can physically perform. It's okay if you can't physically perform it, as long as you know how to safely show them how to do it. But my rule of thumb is if you can't physically do it and you've never physically done it, you probably shouldn't be teaching it, because you haven't learned the deep intricacies of it within your own body, whether it be asana, whether it be pranayama. If a student asks you a question about something fancy to do with yoga or meditation and you don't know the answer, just say something along the lines of, let's find that out together, rather than making up some smokescreen garbage answer, because eventually students figure that out. Also, as part of professionalism, make sure that you acknowledge the student's limits, physically and academically. And it's really going to depend on what type of population you want to teach. But take this into consideration in your master project. Let's talk about a little bit in the ethics category. If you plan on teaching yogasana poses one-on-one or in person. Let's talk about physical adjustments. I didn't put a lot of information in this teaching program on physical adjustments, a little bit on modifications, but not so much on adjustments. So there's pretty much two schools of theory when it comes to ethics and teacher project development. Either you are a physical adjuster or a verbal adjuster or a non-adjuster. Okay, what's it mean to be adjusted? Let's say somebody comes into a lunge in Surya Namaskar and you clearly see that they're out of alignment. Well, you can be the non-judging, non-correcting teacher, which is fine, although they might hurt themselves. But what if the student says, I'm having a hard time with this pose. Could you give me a little assistance? Are you going to verbally cue them how to adjust, or are you going to physically touch them? If you physically touch them, you need to be obviously careful where you touch them. Don't touch, I will just say it blatantly, boobs and butts and crotches, okay? So we have a lot of ethical problems with teachers in the past and big name gurus who were sexually abusive to their students and got away with it in front of people on camera. Please don't be that person. Like, it's just a gross practice, okay? So be careful also when you're making adjustments not to do too much adjusting to the point of hurting them. The adjustment should be very subtle and very delicate, or just demonstrate it next to them and show them how to do it. Try not to be an adjustment jerk. What I mean by being an adjustment jerk is the teacher who's constantly harping on, that's not the right alignment, that's not the right alignment, that's not the right alignment. If you see that there's one or more people out of alignment, just demonstrate correct alignment with your physical body and let them adjust to it, okay? Some students don't want to have it pointed out that they're improperly aligned. They feel like it's unwanted attention. And some students really want that adjustment and attention. So you have to kind of feel it out. All right. Also remember that if you're going to be a hands-on adjuster, that you should be trauma sensitive. Me personally, if I'm taking a public yoga class, which I never do, but when in the past I took asana classes in a public setting, I do not like to be touched by a teacher. It is an absolute no-go, scowl from me, okay? So ask permission before you do a physical adjustment. Ask permission each time. What a student is okay with today, they may not be okay with next month. One pose might be okay to adjust, another pose, they may not want to be touched. So just be mindful of the location you touch, how you touch, and the force in which you touch, okay? Seems common sense, but some people never think about it. I want to touch on just a brief subject on body shaming. In the yoga world where it's focused on fitness and body, there's a lot of body shaming. So be mindful not to body shame as far as somebody's size, too small, too big, overweight, underweight, strong, not strong, flexible, not flexible, and as well as their clothing. Okay, so there's no such thing as yoga attire. There's no such thing as the right yoga body. Everybody is in their own process and their own progress, and be mindful. If a student is clearly too obese to do a pose, just say things like, and if this is a challenge or difficult, please modify or do an optional alternative pose or rest. Don't say things like, if you're too fat to do it, rest. I mean, it's kind of common sense, but you'd be surprised what you hear out there. Now, when it comes to clothing, I want to talk about a couple things. So when it comes to clothing, if you're doing classes in person, there will be the people that are properly dressed. What's properly dressed? You'll see. So you'll have the men and or women who come to class with yoga pants, whatever that means, stretchy pants that are so thin, they're like nylons. And then they're doing down dog in front of everybody and you can see the whole 9 yards. How do you deal with that? A, they may not be aware that they're doing it. They may not be aware of the fact that their stretchy pants are thin and see-through, or they might not be aware of the fact that it wasn't see-through when they left the house, but now that the sun is shining on them, it's like a pair of nylons. What you can do is simply say, now everybody turn so that your buttock is to the wall, rather than saying, hey, Susie or John, I can see all your junk. Okay. So it's better to maybe realize, oh, wow, I have a clothing issue in the room. Let me have all the bottoms turned towards the wall. Or if that's not feasible, you may need to just quietly walk up to the person during class, say, class, give me just a moment. Walk up to the person and very quietly whisper in their ear, your pants are see-through. And then allow them to make an adjustment accordingly. Maybe they can, turn and face the wall a different way, or maybe they need to put a scarf around them. You'd be surprised what you come in contact with. And people are usually horrified that they've done that, but some people do it on purpose too. And if somebody's doing it on purpose and it is disruptive to your room or maybe offending somebody else, which does happen, you may have to take it up one-on-one. So an example is I used to go to a Bikram yoga studio and it's hot where everybody's sweaty. And there were always like women, they were like in their bra and underwear practically. And men were in their little white undies and they're sweaty and see-through. And I mean, you could see everybody's everything in class. Nobody really cared. Nobody was corrected. Nobody was spoken to individually. But your teaching environment might not be conducive to that. So let's talk about 2 other subjects. Men who wear shorts that are a little too short and things are visible. So their genitals are visible. You might not care as the teacher, but the other students might care. If it's a men's only class, nobody might care, or somebody might really not be comfortable with it. So you may say things out loud like, and if your shorts are short, make sure that they're covering your body appropriately. You'll find the right words. You're not going to want to say, hey, John, your junk's hanging out. Okay. I mean, you might be comfortable with your class, or maybe it's a one-on-one. Think about how you're going to communicate these things. Be mindful and kind. A third thing that happens is, we'll just say it like it is, nip slip. So many times when women, if they are large breasted or maybe even small breasted, do different poses, their arms are overhead or they're doing an inversion pose, and then they stand up or they bend over and suddenly there's breasts showing. They might not care, but they might not be aware of it either. So you can also say things that are non-jarring to the class, like, and as you change positions, check the placement of your shirt. Or you might just say what you're comfortable saying. Okay, I'm just pointing these things out because they happen pretty commonly. Might not even apply to you. You might be teaching online, one-on-one. Or what if you decide to do a Zoom class and you have 15 people on your screen and a man suddenly sits down and everything's hanging out? You might need to say something. Or if a woman suddenly stands up and everybody's on screen share, everybody's visible on video, and you've got one breast hanging out, you might have to say something, but you might not want to say, hey, Susie, fix your shirt. You might want to say something like, and now just adjust your clothing if needed. And everybody's going to be like this, huh? Oh, okay. All right. Let's keep moving. I'm going to move pretty quickly through this. For professionalism as a teacher, you need to think about sexuality. We've talked a little bit about clothing of accidental issues. So you want to decide, are you going to do single gender, multi-gender, blended gender, etc. You as the teacher, don't take advantage of your place of power and sexually objectify people. What would that sound like? Things like, oh, hey, nice ass, or hey, nice bod, or hey, nice bikini look, to a man or a female. A man and a female might be equally offended. Try to avoid sexual talk during a yoga or a meditation class unless it is sex that you're talking about. And it's clearly advertised that you're going to be discussing sexuality. As far as sexual dress goes, well, when it comes to a yoga class, some people are all bundled up and covered up. That's cool. And other people may come to class dressed in a way that you're like, oh my gosh, this is not conducive to my environment. Privately let them know. It's not appropriate to wear a G-string to my restorative class. I'm making kind of outrageous examples, but you get what I'm saying. Also be aware that certain poses provoke sexual discomfort. Poses like down dog if the bottom is facing other students, or if the room is so tightly packed that, you're like doing a pose and your head is practically in the other person's private zone. So you may have to kind of rearrange the mats and take that into consideration. As far as poses go and people own their own comfort, that's up to them to modify as well. But if you see that somebody's uncomfortable, offer an adjustment or an alternative pose. Sometimes you even have to talk to them after class if you think it's necessary. All right. Basic boundaries. Keep your personal boundary. As a teacher, you might want to be really involved in their lives, in your students' lives, or you might want to keep a more distant professional relationship. It's up to you. Please don't have a sexual relationship with the student. If a student is looking kind of like, hey, how you doing? Like, flirty, you might want to consider saying, I don't date students. And if you choose not to be a student, then we can discuss dating. I mean, it's totally up to you, but I'm bringing up some issues that get some people into some hot water or some ethical issues as teachers. Financial boundaries. Don't do pressure sales. Nobody wants to have pressure sales on them. But, as far as boundaries go with finances, state what your price is, honor that price, and don't take advantage of people financially. Religious, spiritual boundaries, well, you have to decide what kind of program you're teaching. Is it based off of a religious background, or is it purely spiritual development? And what does that look like? Some people are uncomfortable saying Om and Namaste, but your class might not be for them if that's the case, and they'll figure that out pretty quickly. And if they want to leave because of that, that's fine. We already talked about physical boundaries. Let's talk a little bit about competition. There's no need to ever be in competition with your students, but your students will compete with each other if it's in a group setting. So try to discourage competition. They tend to hurt themselves more when they're in competition, and there's no need. Spiritual competition. There's no need for spiritual competition between you and your students or your students amongst each other. Everybody's at their own pace, their own stage, their own ups and downs in life. Let it be what it is. Oh, basic things like a yoga community. Depending on where you plan on teaching, some yoga communities are horrible, backbiting, spiritual bypassing, pain places, but you'll figure that out quickly. Try not to become part of that. Try to really hold your ethics high and stand your ground on what you believe is your personal practice, your personal teaching practice, and leave the rest behind. If there is a lot of competition in your community, try not to be part of the gossip. It doesn't make you better. It doesn't make you rise farther. It could get you alliances in your community, but it usually comes back to bite you in the butt. And don't be a client stealer. It's just rude. Astea. Back to the yamas and niyamas. I won't go into a bunch of examples. I expect most people taking this program are pretty self-responsible. Okay, a little bit on transparency. So when you're making your master project, how much are you going to charge? Tell them right up front. What is it? One class for $5, $15 per class. Is it prepaid? Is it Zoom? Is it through PayPal? Is it through some other way? Is it check? Is it cash? Is it pay before class? Pay after class? Is it a monthly payment, etc.? If you're not charging money, know clearly what is your exchange. Are you doing, private yoga classes for chicken eggs, lemons, and bundles of sage, for groceries, for a trade in service? I've had students that have been in my program that were estheticians. They did trade for that. I had students who have done trade for technical work. There's all sorts of different ways you can do it, but make sure that you're getting your fair compensation as well. Your time is your prana, is your life. If you want to do pro bono and seva classes, fine. That can be your donation to the community. Be very transparent as far as contracts go as well. So whether you're making the contract, or let's say you decide to go teach inside of a yoga studio or a community wellness center or a community center. If there's a contract, read it over thoroughly and make sure that it is transparent. If you decide to co-op teach with other people too, make sure your contracts are transparent. Whatever kind of agreements you come on to, make sure that everybody is on board. Okay, let me put this on pause a second. Okay, now I want to switch gears and talk about your professional development project. So let me get this on screen share real quick. Pull up project development and put this on present. Okay, so the first thing that you want to take into consideration, who's your target community? Who do you want to teach? Why do you want to teach them? What age do you want to teach? Do you want to teach children? Do you want to teach teenagers, 20, 30-year-olds? Do you want to teach in a convalescent home? I've taught all sorts of different ages and stages of life, but ask yourself, who are you reaching out to and why? Why do you want that target age? Your target community. Where is your population that you want to teach? Are they in your local area? Are they in a specific community that you can access online? Is it your family? Is it a certain sliver of a corporate environment? So think about those two things. These are things that I want on your outline for your master project. What age group and why? What location and why? So the location of your community, I want you to be able to answer, is the location physical, a specific county, a specific city, a specific school, or is it online? And what online location is it? Is it going to be through your private website? Is it going to be through Zoom? Is it going to be through Instagram, through Facebook, through YouTube? I want you to ask yourself and consider your target community and their education level. Does it not apply? Does it not matter? Do they need to at least be able to speak English to understand you? Do they need to have advanced studies in some type of concept you're teaching? Maybe you're going to teach advanced yogasana and advanced meditation techniques. And so they need to have some prerequisites. Consider your target community and their health level, their physical health level, as well as their mental emotional health level. Are you targeting people with mental disorders like anxiety, depression? Are you targeting people with substance abuse issues? Are you targeting people who are weak and out of shape? Are you targeting people who are stiff and really haven't been doing anything for their body? Are you targeting people who are looking to lose weight? Are you targeting mountain climbers? Are you targeting cyclists? Are you targeting breast cancer survivors? There's like so many things you can consider, but consider their health level and that you're not going to cause harm to them. So a lot of, if it's yogasana classes, you have like level 1, level 2, and advanced. So if you're going to be teaching Pawan Muktasana 1 in a convalescent home, that's going to be a lot different of a marketing and execution strategy than if you're going to be teaching 108 Surya Namaskar with mantra in the desert in 102 degrees outside to cyclists and mountain climbers that are men only. Okay, I think you're getting the point here. I want you to ask yourself for your master teaching project, what kind of access do you have to your students? I touched on that a little bit. Are you going to be accessing them through email? Are you going to be accessing them through telephone, through Facebook, through Zoom, Instagram, through a specific community center, corporate center, etc.? And do you need to address special needs? Special needs like trauma sensitivity, special needs like physical disabilities, mental disabilities, emotional instabilities. Okay. And maybe you're not addressing any special needs people. Or maybe the special need is yoga and pranayama to hike Mount Everest. That's a special need. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at a couple other things. What's your topic of passion? What do you want to teach about? Do you love pranayama and meditation? Do you love teaching? Would you like to consider teaching anxiety reduction through pranayama and meditation? Would you like to consider teaching mantra for spirit communication and evocation? Would you like to consider teaching advanced asana? It really depends on you. Do you want to incorporate nutrition and lifestyle and Ayurveda? What's your passion? I don't want you to teach what I teach. I don't want you to teach what, every other yoga studio teaches. I want you to really think, what do I want to teach? And you can always change it along the way. But for your master project, I want to know, what is the topic or topics of passion and why? One of my first classes I taught at Green Tara was very gentle movement, pranayama and meditation for people with mental disorders like schizophrenia, autism. I just really wanted to do that because I felt that that was so beneficial for me. Not that I'm schizophrenic or autistic, but I had a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder. And so it was my subject of passion. And I incorporated in a lot of lifestyle things like eating according to your dosha. I decided I was going to buy a huge set of crystal bowls and incorporate some music into it and mantra into it. And of course, my passions have changed over the years. For your master teaching project, what is your topic of passion and why is it? How much does it mean to you? Has it been what transformed you, and how can it help others? These are things to consider. Now, we already talked a little bit about teaching method. How are you going to reach people? YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Skype, Zoom. Is it going to be written? Maybe you're going to do emails to a group of people. Maybe you're going to write blogs. Maybe you're going to write a book. I don't know. It's up to you. Is your class going to be in person? Is it going to be formal, informal? Is it going to be a set schedule, a pop-up schedule? It's up to you. Other things to consider is, are you going to be using audio visuals? Are you going to be playing music in class? I usually don't play music in class, but sometimes I chant in class. Sometimes I play the gong in class. If you're going to do Zoom, Zoom has terrible audio as far as musical instruments sometimes, and sometimes singing too comes through really weird, but chanting comes through nicely. What kind of visuals are you going to use? Are you going to be using PowerPoints, videos? Are you the visual? You're going to demonstrate and show them how to do it? Are you going to have handouts? It's up to you. It depends on your setting. What kind of personal image do you want to put forth? One thing that we find common in big pockets of the yoga community is the fake sound. Hello, everybody. Welcome and blessings, children. You know, there's kind of like this, I don't know, weird sections that everybody kind of sounds the same, talks the same. What's your style? Are you going to play heavy metal in your class? I don't care if you do. Are you going to play ritual music in your class? That's fine. Are you going to have a really energetic personality? Are you a very subdued, chill, Zen type of personality? What's your personal image? Don't change it for people. That's not being authentic. But what is your image as a teacher? Are you highly professional? Highly organized? Are you playful? Are you funny? Are you informative? Are you casual? Are you social? Or are you very kind of, I'm here to teach and that's it? Things for you to consider. How are you going to create your project? How are you going to promote your project? You can teach. You can want to teach all you want, but how are you going to reach people? Are you going to do ads? Are you going to make like little flyers on Facebook? Join me for 2 p.m. Monday, gentle yoga on Facebook? Or are you going to do flyers in your local community and put them up on the, community sticker boards where you put a pin in it? Are you going to do word of mouth? Are you going to do it through emails? Are you going to do it through friends? Are you going to be in a studio where they do the marketing, or a poor job of marketing, which is often the case? Are you going to make videos? Are you going to do it photos like a handout? Lots of different things you can consider. And again, where are you going to teach? Are you going to be teaching at festivals, conferences, at home, individual homes, one-on-one, in your home, in their home, online, at the park, at the community center, at community events, social gatherings, family circles, friends circles, a formal studio? There's all sorts of things that you can consider, even in a corporate setting. So at this point, I want you to begin developing and submit your project proposal. I want you to take into consideration as many of these things as possible. I want you to write it down in like bullet point details of your project. You can have some paragraphs in there, but make it very organized, like a business proposal. And then I want you to also consider alternative options, your plan B. What's going to be the frequency of your class? What's going to be the length of your class? Are you going to do a 20-minute class on Instagram once a week? Are you going to do 10-minute sound bites every day on Facebook? Are you going to do a 3-hour workshop on Ayurveda yoga and meditation to only 3 people in your community, paid on Zoom? Is it recorded, not recorded? And when's your launch date? Whatever you decide to do, I need to be able to see your whole plan. Let me take this off share. So whatever you decide to do, I want to know all the fun details. I want you to create it in light of you. Who are you? How do you want to reach people? What is your project? What's your passion? What do you really want to do? The sky's the limit. Dream big. If you want 100 people in your class and you only have one the first time, who cares? It's no big deal. If you launch the class and only your mom or your dad shows up, no big deal. This is practice. You can change your plan at any time in your life. You can have option B, C, and D and go through them all and end up with option E a year from now. It doesn't matter. This master teaching project is to really get you thinking, who are you as a teacher? What does it mean to be a teacher? To develop a plan with all the details in it. Don't overthink it. Don't stress out about it either. Have fun making it, okay? And in addition, whatever you decide to do, remember, you need to do 10 hours of confirmed teaching. I need to be able to confirm you've done it. That could be 10 hours of YouTube videos. That could be 10 hours of Zoom classes. That could be 10 hours on Instagram, 10 hours in a closed Facebook group that only 3 people are allowed to attend, including me. But I need to see proof that you've practiced being a teacher. Some of you will be very easy and natural at teaching, and others might be horrified of teaching. If you're one of those who are horrified at teaching or just not really comfortable and sure with yourself, stick with what helped you and just take it as a sharing opportunity. Just share what you've learned with people and allow them to attend and participate with you. Say things like, this is what helped me. Let's try it together. These are the benefits. These are the contraindications. And have fun with it, okay? I don't care how fancy of a teacher you are, or even how crummy of a teacher you might think you are or might be. I want you to get practice under your belt. So in other certifying organizations, they require typically a minimum of 5 hours to teach. I think that 10 hours gives you a more solid foundation and lets you get those fears out or lets you work out any kinks and weird spots, like how to speak to students if you're not familiar with that. So I hope this video was helpful, and be sure to look over the PowerPoints as well and take into consider your plan, your master teaching plan. And once you have devised it, before you launch it, let's talk, make sure it looks good, send it to me electronically, and then invite me or share with me whatever teaching you've done. And if you have any questions, make sure to let me know, okay? I'm really looking forward to what you do. There's really nothing you can do wrong except A, not do it, or B, breach some of those weird ethical and professional issues. And I really want you to feel accomplished as a beginning teacher of this subject. Okay, we'll talk soon.